Well, welcome back. This is Ken Rethmeier, and this is episode 7 of a series of podcasts that I'm developing from my book. The models and the tools are the foundations of the podcasts, and each one is going to focus on one or more of the areas that I think are really important. And in this session, we're going to be spending time talking about how does a leader develop an environment where the meetings have real value? And that's a key challenge. So we'll get into this in just a second. But I'm going to also try to do something a little different. I have a diagram that I'm going to show you. And for test purposes, for me, I'm going to try to add that as a PDF file that you could download. And if it works well, great. Then we'll do that again, because the next episode, the piece of information that I want to pass along will be much more valuable than the one today. So in any event, let me just get this thing going by sharing the screen with you. And this is the PowerPoint that I'll be using today. And there are two tools that are critical in this environment of meetings. The first one is group agreements, and the second one is the tell-cell model of decision making. In this one, I want to try to concentrate just on the group agreements, because that's a very important component of how do you have a productive dialogue in a meeting, and an environment that encourages discussion and open discussion and honest discussion. And the task, again, is to focus on the insight for you as a leader. How could you use this tool to enhance your own group interactions and contributing to sound, efficient, and effective decisions? So hopefully when you get done with this, you'll see the value in it. I know it works. I took it on as a tool that I used in all my consulting work, because what I found was when I met with teams, especially the senior management teams at some of the companies I worked with, it helped me a great deal on setting the tone for the meetings that we did have, and it made it easier for the leader to understand and see where people were coming from. So that's the primary purpose behind that, and I found it to be very useful. So let's get started. And I'm going to start with a series of questions. Think about the following in your environment. And have you ever heard these before? I'm going to guess yes. You're walking down the passageway or the hallway with a colleague, and you're sort of discussing things. And all of a sudden, your colleague turns to you and says, "Do you know why we're meeting today? Have you seen an agenda? All I heard was, just come down here at such and such a time." Oh, well, we'll find out. Or he's or she's, the leader, has already made up his or her mind. I heard it's a decision-making meeting. But if your mind's already made up, so what the heck's going on? Is we just going through this for the motion? Make that person feel good? We can do that in other ways than a worthless meeting. Oh, and then there's and once again we hear, stop everything right now. Get to the meeting. We got to get going. Here we go again. Let's hurry up and, yes, wait again. Everybody laughs out loud, waiting for you-know-who to show up to the meeting. And someone says, I have a better use of my time than this. I know you've never heard that. And then the meetings where you're walking in and someone says, I wonder if we will ever have a meeting when Ben, the cool guy, will ever shut the heck up for a change so we can get something done. There's always that extrovert that has to make sure he or she gets their 2 cents worth in, well, maybe $2 or maybe $200 worth, because they dominate the meeting. So much for before the meeting. Let's turn to after the meeting, and we'll come back to the beginning. I found a very interesting organization that I worked with for a few years. And there was a genteel Southern meeting style. And in the management meetings, everyone said when ideas came up, that's nice. Or converse thinking, oh, yeah, that's nice. Yeah, well, yeah, that's nice too. Yes, that's nice too. And then after the meeting, Don and I would be walking down the hallway, and Don would look at me and say, what the heck was Paul thinking? That was the stupidest idea I've ever heard. So you see, you can't really say what you want to say because that's not the environment that these kinds of meetings allow. They're genteel, quiet. And then there's the meetings where, again, the boss is always right, but no one ever tells you what he or she is thinking. And it's a guess, even sometimes after the meeting, of what was the decision. Or put it more bluntly, well, that was a real waste of time. So this happens in many companies and departments. I've seen and heard about this in my consulting, in my own work experience. And during the consulting times, I try to alert the leader afterwards that I'd like to spend some time with them talking about how we could improve their meetings and make them more functional. And one of the exercises is the tool we're going to work with now to facilitate and make meetings more useful and more productive. And it will work for your team, I know, because I've had it applied in a number of different situations, and it works every single time. And what is it called? Group agreements. And what these are is an opportunity to conduct a business activity in a cooperative, positive, and productive fashion. And that requires everyone in the room sort of operating from the same rules or guidelines on how we're going to interact. And what you have to make sure you understand is, as a leader, you cannot assume that everyone always agrees with the premise that we're going to have a productive meeting. Sometimes it's a brainstorming session to do a list, and that all of us can agree on that list. Well, you need active participation, honest, and participation with integrity. So here's what I recommend. You get a flip chart, put it in the room, gather your team together, and you tell the group, what we're going to do today is we're going to go through a process to identify some agreements that we can all process and say, we're going to live by these every time we get together, and we're going to have more productive meetings. And so the leader opens it up, sort of like a brainstorming process. And the idea is to achieve the best list so the best results occur. And so the whole idea is to go through and get agreement on expectations. The second step is the actual brainstorming. So you open it up, you say, let it fly, just tell me what's on your mind. We'll put it up there. And as a leader, I'm going to assume for the rest of you that if I put it up on the page and I don't get any objections, everybody's okay with that. If you have an objection or you want clarification, tell me, wait a minute, time out, I've got an idea, I need to question something. And that's okay, because that's an important part of the process. And again, it works to the idea that when we get done in step 3, we have a good solid list of ideas that are posted on a chart that everyone says, I can live by those. I can take ownership of that. And so doing, I'm going to take greater ownership of the meetings. We'll come back to how do you also facilitate it from a structural perspective in the next episode. It's very important, however, though, as a leader, when you get done with these kinds of exercise, be sure and congratulate the team. Tell them what you found to be so productive, that you were honest, they didn't interrupt each other, whatever it was. And what that will do is that makes you, the leader, look better. It brings you closer to them for their ideas. And if you all agree, then the meeting goes on with a very productive fashion. And it also means that they look at you and have more trust because they say, hey, he or she listened. They put the list up and agreed to it as well. So what do I have for suggestions for you as a leader? First, I think it's very important to learn how to facilitate meetings like this. In some cases, I found that using brainstorming ideas or processes was a totally novel and new idea in that organization. And I could give you a couple of examples in that regard, one in financial services and one in the mechanical services in the oil industry, the company that I work with. And it's a very important part of the process. So when we would do this in a consulting fashion, I would work with the CEO or whoever's running the meeting to help them prepare in a very productive way so that the meeting turns out well. And as a result, you end up with meetings that are produced in such a fashion that everybody walks out of there feeling very, very good about their contribution, the decision, and the next steps going forward. Very important. So I want to thank you for your attention. This is a shorter version of this time, episode 6. The next episode 7, we'll get to the tell cell model. I think you'll enjoy that, and I'll have a nice item that I will attach to that one when we get done on that one as well. And at this point, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you again. Again, from my perspective, this is an opportunity for me to help share, hopefully stimulate some thinking on your part. And I've had these tools and I've used them over and over again, and I know they work in all different kinds of environments. And oh, by the way, even when I was mayor of a town, that was an interesting episode in my own leadership journey. So I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you in episode 8.